Once again, the public has spoken and I answer the call. Seriously, when will you people ever let me rest? No time for jokes though, we've got a big one lined up and we need all the time we can get. So here are some pictures I found on Google to meet my required amount of funny images per video quota. There, now we can get on to business. Caylus is a game. A really, really heavy game. On a basic level though, you place workers in buildings to get goods that you convert into victory points. In addition to the buildings printed on the board, 6 starting buildings are placed on the road in random order. Every player gets 6 workers, 2 food cubes, 1 wood cube, and 5 to 7 monies, depending on the turn order. The player's various wafer disc things go onto the board, and the bailiff and provost go onto their starting spaces. At the top of the round, each player receives a basic income of 2 monies. Players then take turns placing their workers on buildings for 1 money apiece. When a player runs out of workers or money, or just wants to pass, he places his wafer disc thing on the first available spot on the bridge. The first player to pass gets 1 money from the stock. For every player that's passed, it costs that much more money for other players to place a worker on the board. Once all players have passed, the buildings are then activated starting from the beginning of the road. Now's a good time to introduce the provost. He generally hangs out near the end of the road, though there are 2 ways to move him forward or backward. Once the provost's position for the round is finalized, any buildings further down the road than him will not be activated, so those workers' placements are wasted. The first few buildings on the board affect things like turn order, worker placement costs, and so on. After those buildings comes the bridge. After the bridge are the rest of the buildings. Let's talk about constructing buildings. You want to construct buildings for 3 reasons. You can always put a worker in your own building for 1 money, no matter how many people have passed. You get 1 victory point anytime another player puts a worker in one of your buildings. And the only buildings you can convert into residences and subsequently into prestige buildings are the pink starter buildings and your own buildings. Once all the buildings have been activated, it's time to go to the castle. The castle has 3 sections: the dungeon, the wall, and the tower. Each section is chopped up into multiple squares. Anyone who has a worker on a castle space during the castle phase gets a chance to contribute to the construction of the castle by submitting batches. Batches consist of 3 different cubes, one of which must be food. When players submit batches to the castle, they put one of their little house markers in a square for the current section of the castle. Players get victory points for every batch submitted, and the player who submits the most batches in that round gets a royal favor. Royal favors are tracked in the corner of the board and come in 4 flavors. Every time a player is awarded a royal favor, they can move their wafer disc thing up one of the 4 tracks. They can then gain the bonus for the square their disc is on, or any one below that. There are few limitations on their use, but these favors are a major source of action for players and are usually very sought after. Once all the buildings have been activated and the castle phase is done for the round, the bailiff will move down the road 1 or 2 spots. The provost then moves to whatever spot the bailiff lands on. The bailiff acts as a countdown clock to the end of the game. When he lands on or passes one of these scoring markers on the board, a scoring phase is triggered. Castle scoring can be triggered by the bailiff or when a castle section is filled up. The amount of batches for that section is counted up and royal favors are awarded accordingly for players who meet a certain threshold. Players who don't meet a certain minimum contribution to the castle for that phase will have points taken away. The game ends when the final part of the castle is scored, and players get some extra victory points for goods and money they have left over. And with that, the explanation of the game is complete. You still with me? Good. Caylus is by far the most involved game, rules-wise, that I've reviewed to date. It's meaty, beefy, crunchy, and all those other words you'd associate with games that make steam come out of your ears. For me, that goes firmly in the plus column. I love games like this. Placing workers to get goods to convert them into other goods or shipping them out for victory points is right up my alley. However, it's not for everyone. AP-prone players will take eons to figure out the best play, and since there's no randomness in the game, newer players will usually find themselves outclassed by experts. There's also no elegant way to explain the rules. You kind of have to just dive in and play a turn or two before everyone finally gets it. From there, you can press on and enjoy the game, or start over since everyone has the hang of it. I got nothing here. Alright, it's not quite as fun for 2 players as it is for, say, 4, and you may have a hard time getting this to the table unless your group really enjoys these kinds of games. And I'm almost willing to put the lack of randomness expert player critique under this heading, but your mileage may vary. If you like this style of play but would like a slightly lighter experience, you may want to give Pillars of the Earth a shot. Say, that gives me an idea. No, wait, no. Bad idea. This video's gone on long enough. Next time, though.